Today we're focusing on the subject of how to make better decisions the first time. The challenge for all of us is we're all called upon to make decisions. I mean, situations arise from time to time when you have to look at the alternatives and say, what is the best in terms of the team, what is the best in terms of our environment, or what is the best in terms of me? So today I want to spend a little time just focusing on how we make better decisions the first time, what decision needs are, and what is cause and effect. Someone said to me years ago, the future is luck, but I define it this way. L stands for laboring, U stands for under, C stands for collective, K stands for knowledge. Laboring under collective knowledge. The whole idea is, if I'm going to make great decisions, I've got to know things that I need to know to make those kinds of decisions so that I'm lucky. So the challenge in making good decisions the first time really focuses on what kind of alternatives do I have? Do I really have the facts about the situation? And where are we going in terms of cause and effect? Knowing that every choice has a cause-effect relationship. So if Tom was speaking to you right now, he'd be saying, hey, the quality is not in the challenge to make the decision. The quality is in the alternative choices. The better the choices that I'm choosing between, the better the decision. Also realizing that every choice is a risk. The risk is not to make a decision also. So in other words, if I don't make a decision about this specific situation, then I'm really making a decision. So really, we find most people relate to the situation based upon three responses. And this is in the workbook you have in front of you. Number one is what I call compliance. That response to a decision-making environment is, hey, what will be, just let it happen. I'm not going to make the choice. So for example, if the problem is a fire breaking out and I don't know what the choices are, then just let it burn, and if it burns down, it will burn down. The problem with not making a choice in most environments, from a compliance standpoint, is usually the problem gets bigger because we don't make a choice. Number two response is what we call defense. The defense response says, hey, even if I make a decision, it's not going to work, so why should I take the risk of making a decision? And finally, panic is a response. And the whole panic is, gee, I'm going to make a choice. I'm probably not going to get the facts before I do. I'm not going to take time to do it. So, A, I'm going to make the decision by default because I'm making it fast and not taking the time. So if there is a problem in it, my defense is what? I didn't have time to make the right decision, so whatever I did better be acceptable. Now, the whole challenge here is let's take a better look at how to make the choices and how to make these alternative decisions by preparing for many decisions in our situation. Top of page number 2. There's a little graph there, and I call it the gap graph. It's the difference between where you expect to be and where you are, because usually decisions require me to deviate action. In other words, do something different than what we're doing because we're not going where we want to go. So one line says where we're expected to be, the other line says where we're headed. And between those two lines, I have what I call the choice factor. There are a number of steps I'd like you to complete on that page related to making a proper decision. And certainly number one is critical, and that's clearly define the objective. In other words, where do we want to go? What's the objective? What's the goal in the process? You know, I'll give you a simple example. We're going to take a trip to Denver. Getting to Denver is the objective. Now I have some alternative choices. We could drive, we could take a bus, we could take a train, or we could fly. Each one of those alternative choices has a different level of satisfaction. So the objective is to get to Denver. Now you can time frame also that objective, and that is we want to get to Denver by Thursday. It's now Wednesday. Any goal can have those two characteristics, right? First of all, objective. Secondly, time frame. Number two is what is to be gained as a result of the objective. Well, in this case, it's a vacation. We're taking a trip. We want to see my sister, hypothetically. Okay? So what is to be gained? Vacation. Number three is to verify the facts. How far is Denver? How long will it take to get there in any of one of our alternatives? By plane, about 2 hours. By train, about 3 days, depending upon how many stops. By bus, who knows? By car, 14 hours. So now you have the facts related to the given alternatives. Please note there, the facts should be related to the alternatives, not just to the objective or goal. Number 4 is defined alternative actions. Remember, the better choices are made based upon quality of choice. So the better choices I have, the better the net results from making the decision. Number 5 is to prioritize the alternatives. And I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. Number 6 is get everyone's commitment. So in other words, when we discuss the choices that are involved and where we want to go, in our work environment, we have a collective decision based upon that. So we're all committed to the fact that if going to Denver is our best alternative, and that is by plane, then we're all committed that based upon the facts involved, we've all decided to go that way. If somebody decides to take the bus and we're on a team, then we're going in opposite directions to get to the same destination. And in most decision-making processes, it doesn't work because productivity tends to go down when we're both trying to get to a net result different ways. Part of the challenge. And finally, number 7 is to establish checkpoints. So in other words, if we're taking a plane, when does it leave? How soon do we need to be at the airport to have all the team members check in? If we're going by car, when do we need to get gas? When do we need to stop? What are our checkpoints for progress along the way? All of these steps are necessary in effective decision making. Most of us in our lives have not been brought to the point of understanding these steps, so naturally, when we're making decisions, we don't bring into play each of the characteristics it takes to make great decisions. Okay? We don't prioritize, we don't get everybody involved, we don't create alternatives at a quality level. We might create alternatives, and we might say, yes, it's an alternative choice, but when we get right down to it, the quality level of the choice might not be high enough to even make it a choice. For example, maybe bus is not even a choice. But we add it as a choice because somebody brought it up. And then we don't quantify it well enough to get rid of it, so we begin rethinking our process all along. So let's take the choice process of going to Denver for just a minute, and let's rethink this. Well, we want to create quantifiable choices. So we say our choice is car, bus, train, or plane. Now let's look at the factors we're going to weigh our choices around to make good choices. Well, we want to look at flexibility, right? So we're going to weigh our choices based upon flexibility. We want to weigh our choices based on cost, because each one of them have a different cost factor. We want to look at the choices based upon dependability. In other words, which one can we rely upon the most? If we've got a week to be there that's going to get us there on time, give us enough time to be there to enjoy the trip, and get us back. What about arrive rested? That might be a quantifiable factor we want to look at. What about enjoyable? We might want to weigh each one of our alternatives based upon enjoyable. You know, 4 kids in a car, 14 hours might not be the best choice, right? So there are things that vary the quantifiability of the trip. And finally, on time. So if I take my choices across the top, bus, plane, train, or car, and then put the factors that we're judging each one of those alternatives by, and then I would challenge you to weigh them on a scale of A, B, and C. So in other words, let's take flexibility and let's take car. Is it an A, B, or C? I'd say it's probably an A, because we can leave anytime we want. Okay? We can stop anytime we want. Okay? Let's take bus. Might be a C. Bus, like plane, leaves at a specific time. Not a lot of flexibility. Bus stops when the bus wants to stop. Let's take plane. Plane might be a C today, depending upon the weather and the specific situations, right? Flexibility, Zippo. But when we get down to arriving on time, within reason, don't be too hard on the planes today, you know, we might be there within a couple hours of when we plan to get there. Now, as you weigh all these, then if you score them, and I'm taking you through a heavy process here, but you begin to see the rationale. If I rate every A as a 4, every B as a 3, every C as a 1, for every A I give myself 4, then weigh each one of those characteristics under each one of the choices. In our situation, we got down to deciding to go by car rather than to go by plane because of the weighted scores we came up with based on all the factors. Now, in the end, we decided to go by what anyway? Plane. Thank you all very much. But at least it worked us through the process. Now, my challenge for us in the work environment as a team is to take the characteristics like this. Okay? We want to increase productivity. We typically look at 4 ways to do it. Each one of those 4 choices has a quantifiable weighing scale. So we can look at, increasing the number of people on that particular activity, okay? Changing the time frame for that activity, okay? Changing the time of day for that activity, changing the production process for that activity, and then we can actually give it weighted scores to take a look at the best way to do it. In this case, this particular company actually added people to the production activity to get it done in a more effective environment. But that has to be the choice of the team. Let me go back to the quality of the choices and your ability to prioritize the choices based upon variables will give you the best results. Let's look at some specific rules then on page number 2. Number 1, if you're going to make great choices and best decisions the first time, you have to define the alternatives in the choices. The definition of the alternatives will create better decisions in the process. Number 2, you've got to be more optimistic about your results. So rather than take a relationship or a response, as I said earlier, of defense, panic, or compliance, you actually have to get on board and make a commitment that everybody says, if we're going to go there, this is the best way to do it, and makes a commitment. Number 3 is balance each alternative against the other alternative. So in other words, lay them out on a grid, so to speak, and say, if we do A, if we go by bus, what's the net result? If we go by car, what's the net result? If we go by plane, what's the best result? And if we go by train? And number 4 is finally schedule project checks. So in other words, if we decide to go a certain way, pick a certain way to go. In other words, that is our choice alternative. Can we vary that or change our alternative along the way? Certainly. And that's a myth in decision making that has caused a lot of problems for some companies and some teams, is they make a decision to go a certain way and they think that that's the way they have to go, even though along the way it appears that another alternative would have been a better one. So they refuse to switch gears and go with the other alternative because they believe they have a commitment to this one to the end. In the decision-making process, let me go back and just simplify and clarify this for you. Better decisions are made because we come up with better definable choices. Better decisions end up in better results because we all get on board and make a commitment to support that specific alternative. Better decisions are made because when we come up with the choices, we weigh each choice against the other, and we effectively define those. Decision-making can be made simple, or simpler at least, if we look at effective alternatives. Thank you very much.